Americans are on attack when it comes to their finances. The UK is on defense.
That's not true.
The UK as a whole isn't set out to make you wealthy. It's not. You can take out debt. You can take out a loan to buy a car to pay for a wedding. But once you take out a loan to build a business, it's like an auto decline.
It seems like in the UK, we are obsessed with home ownership. Why do you think that is?
And I'm going to agree, even though I disagree with you. A lot of people that don't need to use schemes are using schemes.
You're actually right. Even if you don't have any other investment, you should at least own your home.
I disagree with some of it. Being repeatedly told no, it can have an impact on you, innit? I was doing mortgages for people that in some cases were in worse financial situations myself. So when someone's denied you twice, sometimes it's like, do you know what? You're going to be better forging your own path.
Welcome to the Building Wealth with No Borders podcast with me, Lamide Elizabeth, where I'll be bringing you guests from around the world to share their strategies on building wealth. And today we are in London with founder of Bricks and Tips and property expert Tayo Oguntonade.
Yes.
Did I say it right? I've never heard of that surname. I feel like I keep saying that every time someone comes up. I've never heard of that surname
Seriously,
before.
you never heard him say my name on TV?
No.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Co-founder of Bricks with Tips with my wife, Antoinette. I have to big up
Antoinette,
Antoinette.
yes, your wife.
Yeah.
Okay, so please introduce yourself to our guests, what you do, kind of what you studied, how you arrived to who you are today.
Okay, so what I do today, I'm the co-founder of a platform called Bricks with Tips, which is all about financial literacy and helping people achieve their property goals, be it buy their first home or property investment. And that's globally at the moment as well. I'm also a TV presenter. I present on a few TV shows on Channel 4.
Which ones?
The Great House Giveaway. Okay. I've also done shows like Key to a Fortune, done a few documentaries with Channel 4, Make Your Move, which was a digital TV show, which was collaborated with Skipton Building Society, and so on and so forth. So a few bits. I'm also a podcast host. I host the Bread and Butter podcast. What else? I'm a content creator on Bricks with Tips. Mm-hmm. And I'm a father and a husband. Oh,
amazing. I love a whole well-rounded person. So what was your education? How did you get started?
Depends how far back we take it. But if we start with university, I studied economics in university. I just about got into university, actually. I got into university through clearing.
Oh, what happened?
I'm one of those people, right, that I could have done better. I know I could have done better. Mm-hmm. Academically wise, I am smarter than what I achieved. I just
couldn't bothered.
Yeah, not even just like I didn't take it as seriously as I should have, basically. But by God's grace, still going to university. Had a great time at university. Came out of university with a degree in economics. Even while I did economics, I wanted to. There's a pattern in my life, right? I want it to be broad. So I know economics, first of all, is respected. So I'm very strategic with stuff.
Okay.
So I know that it's respected. So I know that I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I know I could change industry, first of all.
Yeah.
But I could also go into like finance. I could go into accounting. Like even to this day, I've never worked as an accountant, but I registered to ACCA. Like I've just got like a very coloured like education and the things that I wanted to do. But I came out of university, I wanted to work in banking. I couldn't get into banking. One of my friends helped me get a job.
Why couldn't you get into banking?
The grad schemes back then were crazy, man. Just put in your application for a grad scheme. That's like auto reply. Sorry, you didn't get it. I swear to you, like instant. I was wondering what I put in there. Like that made you come up with this, or they come back to you like a year later and stuff like that. It was immense. Like it was the trench.
No, banking applications are insane,
and they take very long as well. It's crazy. Like
you have to do it like a year before.
It's crazy. Like it was mad. So you know what's so interesting as well? All of the struggles that like. And I don't mean to compare struggles. That might not be a struggle for someone. But at the time, I knew I wanted to work in banking. And being repeatedly told no, it can have an impact on you, innit? But I'm so thankful for all of those bits and pieces as well, because I think that taught me early on that I was a bit defiant at that point. I'm like I always wanted to work in like JP Morgan. I was like, bro, JP Morgan can't do nothing for me. I'm bigger than JP Morgan. How about that? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, it's just like I started being a bit more defiant and like these places can't define me.
That's important. That's important.
Yeah, it's important to understand your self-worth. Anyways, one of my friends helped me get a job. I didn't get any grad scheme, came out of university. One of my friends helped me get a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I always tell the story, but I don't know if you know anyone that's worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. It's just not a renting car. It's not just a car rental company. It's an American car rental company. So it's very, very intense. Yeah. But so many lessons learnt there, basically. I always used to mention that sometimes we had corporate clients that we used to deliver cars to at like 7 p.m. We'd have to like wash the car before we deliver it to it. Bear in mind, we're in London, innit? So it's dark at 7 p.m. and it's raining and I'm wearing a suit and I'm washing the car outside.
You washing the car in your suit?
I swear to you, mad experience. Look, I've come a long way, man. and I always, a lot of people may have heard this before, but I always like to mention it because it taught me a lesson. We used to work with like some Eastern Europeans. When I finally got a job in Santander as a personal banker, I was leaving. And I didn't really rate the job I was going to. I thought that it's better, but I said to myself that I know I'm going to achieve much more than this. But something really humbled me. One of the Eastern European guys was saying, bro, you're going, new job, you got your own office? I was like, yeah, I do have my own office. And you don't have to be on your feet all day. I was like, oh yeah, no, to be fair, I got a chair. And like, you got climate control in your office? I was like, and it made me just like notice that sometimes you just have to be grateful for the simple things in life. And like, you'll arrive in it. But anyways, I digress. I've worked a lot.
I didn't see enterprise rent a car on your LinkedIn.
It's not because I'm ashamed about enterprise rent a car. It's not relevant.
Okay.
You have to be sharp, innit?
Okay, all
strategic,
right, fair,
like I mentioned. It's just not relevant to anything I'm doing right now.
Okay, fair.
So Santander, I'll tell a quick story about Santander. I wanted to be a mortgage advisor. Hopefully this will be a lesson to someone. I wanted to be a mortgage advisor. I was the best person at sales in the region. I wanted to be a mortgage advisor. I said, no, we've got no positions. So keep doing your thing in personal banking. I was told that once. I didn't listen. Defiant once again. I went and paid for my mortgage exams myself. I qualified. I said, look, I got my qualification myself. Is there positions? They said no. I then left and went to Countrywide Mortgage Services. When I was leaving, they was like, oh, no, we got this position for you. Listen, when someone's denied you twice, sometimes it's like, do you know what? You're going to be better at forging your own path. Similar to what I know how you feel about the UK government and what they think about wealth. Sometimes you need to understand that people want you to take their path. And sometimes when you're doing something that isn't in the UK's path or the steady path, sometimes it might be better for yourself. So just bet on yourself in as many situations that you can.
Why did you want to move into mortgages so much?
Because I wanted to be a financial advisor eventually.
Okay. And why though?
Because very good at question. No one's actually asked me that. With financial advisors, you can have like funds under management.
Okay.
So you can get paid your fee for financial advice, but when you start building up your portfolio more and more, you get like a percentage of the client's monies that you're managing. So that, and that kind of will lead on to why I got into property, because it's all of that partly passive income. You get what I'm trying to say? So did Countrywide Mortgage Services and mortgage broker. Absolutely loved it. That propelled my journey into property massively. Proximity and who you're around is massive. I was doing mortgages for people that in some cases were in worse financial situations myself. So when you understand that, it's kind of like, why wouldn't I buy a home? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Proximity, I'm like, my targets were to write 10 mortgages a week. So all of a sudden, something that seems massive and a huge achievement in the UK and so on and so forth, I'm delivering these weekly, monthly. So I say that to say that in anything you do, if you can get close proximity to what good looks like or what you want to achieve, all of a sudden you'll start feeling possible. Anyways, I'm gonna speed up because there's a lot of jobs.
That's okay.
Mortgage advisor. Then I went to Deloitte as a contractor.
Okay.
That opened my eyes to something again.
What?
I was contracting doing PPI. Yeah.
PPI.
Remember payment protection insurance? So
the one that was always on adverts on.
Yeah. So I was contracting for Deloitte, but kind of like helping people resolve their PPI stuff, innit?
Okay.
This is where I got the status doesn't mean anything for me. Because the rate they were paying me, I was making more than junior doctors. And when you put PPI and junior doctor, it's kind of like you couldn't even fathom that someone doing that is paying more. But it just made me aware that, do you know what, there's pockets in like the corporate world or like a job that people don't really talk about that are earning a decent amount of money. Anyways, I went from there to do compliance at HSBC, then went to JP Morgan finally.
Oh.
Yeah, I got in.
I think I did see that. What did you do at JP?
Compliance.
Okay.
So I was part of a QC team.
Compliance is very different to
front office, yeah. I never
mortgage broking though.
Yeah.
So how was that adjustment?
Well, I adjusted when I went to Deloitte and then adjusted when I went to HSBC when I first started doing compliance.
Okay.
But as a contract, contracts, they're not, sometimes you can get in even if you don't have a huge amount of experience in it. So I kind of did contracting in HSBC and then crystallized it in
Do you like compliance?
It suited me massively.
Is it?
Yeah, it suited me because I was able to do stuff outside. Because remember, at that point, I already had a portfolio of properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we don't remember that because you never told us that.
Yeah, so I bought my first property when I was a mortgage broker at Countrywide.
Okay.
That's when I bought my first property.
Right.
I bought my next property the year after. I think by that time I might have been at Deloitte. Okay. Yeah, I was at Deloitte. Because I remember, I was at Deloitte at that point. So I'd had a property portfolio. I think even close to the end of JP Morgan, I'd started my platform Bricks with Tips.
Okay.
So compliance suited me because it paid a decent amount because you're working for an American bank, but I was able to do stuff outside work.
So it was a lifestyle thing. It suited your lifestyle.
It suited my lifestyle massively. And then also, I think I realized at that point that I'm one of these people, when I'm doing something, it's an automatic reaction to kind of like tell people what I'm doing and kind of share my thoughts. I can't help it. It's like verbal diarrhea. But I always used to have this saying, like, look, honestly, like in the UK, when you start earning 50K, you might as well just get another side hustle. Like, because honestly, like they're gonna pay you 7K more to manage 20 people. It doesn't make any sense. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So either you chill within a team where you can do your thing and go home on time and stuff like that, or you're now the person that has to wake up first, leave last, and they pay you 7K more for it. I'm like, I forget that. Like, I tell people you might as well pick up a little hustle on the side. So,
but I resonate with that so much because with my, first of all, I really, really like your career journey because a couple of the people who I've brought on the platform have been a bit more like me, where they've had everything figured out from like school times and went straight into Goldman Sachs, straight into JP Morgan. And the lessons that they learned is from the flip side, where you said that like you saw people who were, you know, in a worse financial position than you getting a mortgage, whereas they're seeing like people who are making, you know, multi-millions and they're like, this person is not that far off from me. So it's like a completely different, I guess, a way of looking at things. So I really like your journey so far. But then also when I went into, was going into banking, the most sought after role is the investment banking division.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't able to break down the investment banking. You don't need to if you're not in the investment banking world. But when you go into the investment banking division, your hours can be let's say like 9 till like 3 a.m. And that it can include Saturdays and Sundays. And that was like where everyone was going for. And it was like, if you were the best, you wanted to go there. And I was just like, I always knew that I was going to start something outside of my main job, because the skill set that is needed to excel in banking, I have so much more than that like work cannot be my everything. I always knew that. And so I went into credit. So credit is, and it's very unique at JP Morgan and I think Goldman Sachs, they do it very differently where you have access to clients and you have the ability to have really good exit options and stuff. But the hours were more like when I left JP and I was in covering fintechs, I think my hours were kind of like 9 till 7. And that was great in banking. Like that was great. But I was forfeiting income because I could be earning more if I was in IBD. But then on a net basis, in terms of what I would actually be taking home, when you then factor in taxes and the difference between taxes for a side hustle where it's under a limited company, and then the taxes if you're getting like a big bonus in IBD, like on a net basis, I was probably happier and actually making more than my counterparts who would have went into IBD. So there's definitely a strategy around like, and I think that sometimes some of you may be watching this, and I've discussed it on maybe a couple other podcasts as well, where you might not like a job because of certain reasons. But if that job can give you the platform or just the ability and the flexibility to then start something outside of it that you can really enjoy, that's not something that should be taken for granted, like at all. At all.
And I think especially in this day and age where we're living in a world where your passions, if you're adding value with your passions, it's at some point down the line you can monetize it. It's definitely not something to be ignored whatsoever. And like you say, the hours, you knew what the hours were and you decided that those hours suited you. When I was working in compliance, I was working 8 till 4. And bear in mind with that 8 a.m, I might come in at 8:30. Because I actually said to them, I knew that when people worked 9 till 5, in banking, you know what it's like, even if you end at 5, no one gets up at 5. We'll all be looking at each other until 6 p.m, then you finally leave. Hate that stuff. So when I went to another investment bank, I said, do you know what, I've got to work 8 till 4. Set expectations from the beginning. I've got to work 8 till 4. But because I've got to leave at 4 to do something, I'm leaving at 4 on the dot. Once it's 8, 4, I put on my bag and I go. But I think that I heard you say something on your podcast before, which is like, and I encourage everybody to do this. You mentioned something about understanding your surroundings, and you saw people that were ahead of you, like corporate titles above you, and the life they were living in was like, this isn't much far from, like, you don't have, it feels like you've got the same disposable income that I do. Like, this is crazy. And I think I did a similar thing. I said that in banking, it's very clear as well. Corporate titles, you know, like roughly how many years it will take to get that. You can exceed it by a year or 2 or whatever, but you've got kind of like a timeline. And sometimes what people need to do, you need to have foresight. And I was looking at some corporate title and I was like, do I want to wait 5 years for this? The answer was just a massive no. So I just, at a point, I was just like, you know what, I'm ready to start doing other things.
Can you talk us through the conditions of what your first investment looked like? So like, how much did you put down? Like a bit more of the story about that. And then maybe your second one as well. Yeah,
of course. So first property was £150,000. Put down a 10% deposit and then fees. So I think it was like 20,000, 21,000. Bought a 3-bedroom house in Sittingbourne. Moved.
Where is that?
Kent.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you the rationale as well. So it goes back to what I mentioned before. before I went to university, so when I lived in my parents' house, I lived on the outskirts of London, like closer down to like southeast on the border, so like Bromley, Orpington area. I saw like a lot of my aunties in church and stuff like that. They were moving to Dartford.
Mm.
And at that point, and this is why I say that I'm a bit strategic. At that point, I was like, okay, cool. 2 adults at the peak of their career and earning power are choosing to buy a house in Dartford.
Mm.
So the next generation is only going to go further into Kent. And at that point, I went a bit further than they were going to go, but it was kind of like my foresight, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
And lo and behold, today, there's people buying in Sittingbourne today. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because that's where it's affordable. Anyways, I bought that for £150,000, rented out rooms, and an income on it. I think my mortgage was at 488. I still remember it. Rented out one room for £500, rented out the other room for 450. So I was in the green from month one, basically.
Was you married at this point?
Single.
Just you. So you were okay like living with people in your home?
So that's a really, really good question. And I often say to people that we spoke about the comfort thing. Everybody wants to be super, super comfortable. And I get it. Like if you lived in a property, if you lived at home in your parents' house where you had your own bedroom and an ensuite, or you lived in the annex of your parents' house where you've almost got a self-contained home, then I understand why you wouldn't want to rent out a room in your house. You got what I'm trying to say? But the reason why I'm quite firm on this, especially if you know you want to buy a home, is that it's for 2 reasons, right? Like I grew up, when I was growing up, I shared a room with my brother, like a lot of people do. I think eventually I had my own room when he went to university. And then when I went to university, I was room sharing anyway with my, not room sharing, sorry, wow, house sharing. Room by room, though, innit? Do you know what I'm trying to say? So the scenarios aren't really changing. So, do you get what I'm trying to say? The only difference is that it's my home this time and I'm the boss. Does that make sense? Although they may be strangers, but I'm being paid for it this time as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not far from a scenario that I just experienced. The problem I find is that a lot of people want to be super comfortable and build wealth. And that's possible if your parents are wealthy. That's the truth. If not, it's going to take some kind of uncomfortability to build it.
How long did you stay in that position where it was you and 2 roommates?
About 6 months. I went back to my parents' house.
And then you rented out the third one?
The third one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the agreement that you need to be able to buy property and then rent out the 2 other rooms? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so most lenders will allow you to have lodgers because they're lodgers, they're not tenants, right?
Yes.
They're lodgers.
Okay, what's the difference then?
A lodger is basically when you've got people living in each room, but the landlord, you, the owner, are living in the property as well.
Okay.
They're lodgers. And the terms and conditions differ between when they're tenants. And tenants is when there's no landlord that lives in the property. Most lenders will let you have lodgers. The government actually supports it with a scheme called Rent a Room scheme, where the first £7,500 you earn from renting out a room is tax-free as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you eventually left the third one, was it still a lodger's agreement? Does it change?
Changes to tenancy agreement.
Okay.
So at that point, I had to get consent to let from my existing lender. And they allowed me to let out the property. It's just a form tick box online. And they allowed me to let out the property fully, basically.
Do you need a good reason?
Once upon a time, you have to give a reason. Like, oh yeah, do you know what? Commute to work is just a bit too long for me, so on and so forth. I think over time, a lot of the mainstream lenders that have a lot of clients, you need to understand with these things, like if you've got 400,000 clients, like taking 8,000 consent to let queries by phone a year costs more money than it's worth. So a lot of the bigger lenders just changed it to tick box. Some of the lenders are a bit funny now. They want to charge for it. £200, £250. I don't mind that one. The one I don't like is when they say that, yeah, we'll give you consent to let, but we're going to add 1% on top of the interest rate. It's a little bit like...
So what stops people from then putting 10% down instead of 25%, which you would usually need for a buy-to-let mortgage, and then just using that as an investment property? Why would I not just do that?
A lot of people do it.
I know a lot of people do it.
A lot of people do it. What's stopping them?
Nothing.
Nothing really. For the same reasons. And you're not supposed to do it. Let me make that clear. You're not supposed to do it. It's not allowed. Most lenders will not allow that, basically. But it goes back to, I have to state facts, right? It goes back to what I mentioned before. A lot of these lenders have 500,000 clients or 400,000 clients. It probably costs more money to monitor that stuff than to allow it to happen. So,
I think with those things, I don't know what the issue is, because people tend to ask me like, oh, I'm just going to do this instead. And I'm like, sure. But when you cut corners like that, I feel like things like that always come back to bite you in the weirdest of ways, like something that you might want to do and it will just come back to bite you.
I agree with you, but in a different perspective. Like if you're, so we mentioned you, right? Very intentional with your investment journey. And I think that what you did was the right way you'd go about it if you've got your characteristics. Now, someone who's got your characteristics and very intentional with investment, it would work for them to do the 25%. Because there's even simple things like the person who did it that way is going to have a repayment mortgage. I'm pretty sure that you'd have interest only, right? Yeah. Which means that you've got a lot more profit and it allows you to just do more effectively. Yeah. So even a simple thing like that is where it's more beneficial your way.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the other different ways that people can get into property in the UK, because that's kind of what you're really good at talking about. So what are all these different schemes that people can do? I've heard like no deposit down, 5% deposit down, shared ownership. Can you talk about some of those and maybe like some of which ones you like and maybe which ones you don't like so much?
So we talk about for first time buyers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So schemes are divided into 3 categories, right? Government schemes, developer schemes, and lender schemes. So government schemes would be your things like first home scheme. I can give a one-liner about each of them, right?
Yeah.
First home scheme, a scheme where you get 50% off your first home. Problem is, when you sell that first home, you're going to have to give the next person 50%. So it's kind of like...
Is that a scheme?
Yeah, first home scheme, yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that scheme as well. The other con about the first home scheme is that it's pretty non-existent, extremely hard to find. I think in 2022, the year after it was launched, only 35 people across the whole of the UK completed on the first home scheme. So is it a scheme? Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Never heard of that.
The next one is probably the most popular, popular is the word, scheme, which is shared ownership, right? And it goes back to what we mentioned before. Shared ownership allows you to buy a share of a property and put down a deposit as low as 10 or 5% on a share of a property. So I always give the example, you've got £400,000 flat. That's nice, pretty, sparkling. And they'll say to you, you can buy £100,000 worth of this flat and put down 10%, which means that you're accessing a 400k flat for £10,000. Now, because the barriers to entry are low, that's why it's the most popular one.
But in that case, why wouldn't you just rent? Because you have to pay rent on the other portion, right?
Exactly that. So the idea is that at least I'm salvaging 25% of the equity, basically. At least 25% is going into equity. My rule for all of schemes exists.
Can I ask you something on that again? What's the long-term goal with shared ownership? Do you then aim to buy another 25% in a couple
staircase
of
to 100, yeah.
Okay.
I've got my views on that as well. Some people staircase and they won't staircase all the way to 100. They'll staircase and stop at 75. The problem when you staircase and stop at 75 is that you can sell that 75%. But guess what? It doesn't have that attractiveness of shared ownership. Because that 75% is so close to 100% that a lot of people that would consider that 75% would just buy 100% of a property. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
At the same time, it's 75% now, so it's quite a lot more money. So you don't have that appeal that it had at 25%. All in all, like, I've got a rule for shared ownership, right? I say that you shouldn't consider shared ownership unless you need to be in a major city, not want to be. I always have to mention to people that what is a need? Like a need is that there's someone that relies on you for care, or there's someone that you care for that needs to be in the city. And it's absolutely, buying in London's tough. So it's absolutely impossible for you to buy in London unless you use something like shared ownership. And then the last thing is you understand all of the cons as well. Because for a lot of people, moving further out and getting 100% ownership is definitely the way that you want to go about it. There's all sorts of other schemes that allow you to buy with zero deposit.
What's that about?
So, so my rule is understand the cons. I think that scheme works, and I think it's who it was built for. It was actually built for the people that it works for. So how it works is that you can put down a £0 deposit if you've been renting for a certain amount of years, and you can prove that you've been paying the rent on time. And they base the lending based on how much you've been renting for as well. So you're not over leveraged. So they might say to you, Lamide, you've been renting for £2,000 per month for the last 4 years. So like, why wouldn't we give you a mortgage that is 1,600? Does that make sense?
Right.
Now, what are the cons of buying with no deposit? The interest rate is a little bit higher. Yeah. And there's more risk of negative equity. Negative equity is if you buy a 400k property and you've put down no deposit, and house prices dip slightly to 390k. This means that your loan is at 400k, but your assets only worth 390k, which basically means if you sold, you'd have £10,000 you have to pay out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everybody that buys with a mortgage is at risk of negative equity.
Mm-hmm.
The person that buys with £0 is at more risk of negative equity.
Mm.
Now, I'm glad I'm sitting on this couch with you. Do you know why?
Why?
You were an investment banker in London, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah? We're working in investment banking in London. So if you were renting for £2,000 a month, and you were like, do you know what? I want to buy a house, and it was your investment probably wasn't your purpose. Buying a home was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to buy a home, but me paying rent at £2,000 a month is stressing me out. And do you know what? I work long hours, 9 till 7 p.m., 9 till 3 a.m. I can't afford to move further out. Like these hours are vital to me and my work. And that's the reason why I earn so much as well. So this scheme comes along, £0, zero deposit. All right, let me look into this. The interest rate's a bit higher than other products, but I mean, interest rate.
How high are we talking?
Maybe like 1% higher.
Okay.
At this point, you're a high earner. Interest rate, right? Because when I was buying my first home, I was of the view, I was buying in Sittingbourne, so it was a lot cheaper. My scenario was a bit different. But I was like, I don't care what interest rate is. I just need to get approved so I can go on my journey, rent out the rooms. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I was renting out a room, so it's kind of like, the mortgage is going to be covered anyway. Does that make sense? Anyways, we'll go back to yourself. So interest rate for me, if it's 1% higher, yeah, I can do that. If you're going to let me come in the house. All right, cool. More risk of negative equity. You might be thinking that, all right, cool. Do you know what? I was paying, if you're going to give me the mortgage and I'm paying £1,600 a month, I was paying £2,000 rent. So what I'm going to do £400 overpayment every single month. I remember with overpayment, you don't pay interest on overpayments. So that actually reduces your effective interest rate as well, because you're not paying any interest on that £400 that you're paying each time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But then, because some lenders will charge you if you overpay. So this is just a specific.
No, most mainstream lenders will allow you to pay 10% of the whole mortgage balance interest-free.
Okay. And in overpayment?
In overpayments.
Without penalties.
Okay. Yeah. That's what most of them do. So, but the thing is, the truth of the matter is that not everybody is in your scenario or in the scenario that you were in. And that's why I said it was made for those people. Can you see why that might work for that person? Though?
Yeah.
But that person, you those years ago, is not everybody. It's actually the minority to the highest degree, basically. So unfortunately, when you launch a product, it's available to a lot of people, and a lot of people that might get into something like that and then struggle, basically.
So the most important thing here is basically you have to choose something that is designed for you specifically.
You have to understand what this thing is. Understand the cons and work out how you can dance around them or if they actually apply to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And if you would like to become an international property investor in Dubai or in the UK, the link to book a free consultation will be in the description box below. If you're not quite ready to invest yet, check out the affordable video courses that will also be linked in the description box below. And if you would like to relocate to Dubai, set up your business in Dubai, or anything else related to relocating to Dubai, check out www.theprofessionalnetwork.com. Do you think that we are obsessed with home ownership in the UK, obsessed with home ownership in America as well? Because there are other European countries, Germany, for example, Netherlands, Switzerland, where home ownership is not as big of a deal. Like renting is pretty normal. But it seems like in the UK, we are obsessed with home ownership. Why do you think that is? Do you think it makes sense for us to be as obsessed with home ownership as we are?
And we are 100% obsessed, right? 100%, no doubt about that. I've been saying that home ownership falls into some of the I say it's a pre-installed goal in the UK, right? It falls in line with go to university, buy a home, get married, have kids. You don't have to do those things.
Yeah.
But even if you don't want to do those things, you know that the majority of the UK grows up in those are the things that you need to do. So buying a home is very, very unique in that, because what it does is it just means that people who are born in the UK just feel the need to buy a home.
Yeah.
Now, this has an impact on investors as well, a positive impact, because I always say that it's predetermined demand if you own property. And that's why they use the term get on the ladder. And I always mention that the UK is a small island. If you think that house prices have been increasing in like certain places in America, where they've got masses of land, right? The UK's one is even more so of a reason, because this tiny island, supply is never hitting the numbers that it's supposed to hit, and demand is growing increasingly, and it's kind of like a pre-installed demand. Now, the thing I'd say about that is that a lot of people say that, yeah, but these things are like causing issues, like housing issues in the UK and that. And I agree with them, right? The UK is in a really bad place when it comes to housing. I think the first thing to do is acknowledge that, and the next thing to do is act on it or around it. The reason why I say that is that I should be able to go to university for 3 years and get a grad job. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to. I know that that's not the reality. And I know it's a job market issue. So that's why when I come out of university, contacting all of these different people and trying to get a job, even if it's not in my industry. Does that make sense? So if we know that UK housing is in an issue, we acknowledge that it's not fair, but the next thing we've got to do is act on it or around it. And either buy your first home, and I can explain why I say buy your first home, but buy your first home or buy an investment property to link a large amount of your income or your funds to inflation, basically, or try and beat inflation effectively.
Okay, because I have heard you say something along the lines of like, even if you don't have any other investment, you should at least own your home.
Yeah, so that's my rule, right? Some people say, should everyone buy their first home? I say no. But, and the reason why, this but I'm going to say is the majority of people. And that's why we have our platform. Because as much as, it sounds crazy to say, but as much as I want everybody to be super aspirational, business owners, multimillionaires, the truth and the numbers state that not everybody is going to be. So who is talking to the people that aren't going to be? Who's talking to the nurse that is very comfortable in what she does? It's her passion and she has no interest in building a business and so on and so forth, basically. Who's looking after their finances? Does that make sense? So my rule is, if you are not an incredibly high earner, investment banker, football player, if you are not investing elsewhere, you're not investing in like a stocks and shares ISA or an index fund or even anything elsewhere, and you're not building a business, you need to buy your first home. Why? Somebody who's an incredibly high earner, right? They don't really need to be concerned with like inflation is eroding their funds, but they're fighting back basically. If you're earning a lot of money, you're fighting back. Like football players don't really have to think about it. They got to think about the long term, but in their day-to-day, they don't, right? People that are investing elsewhere, they're doing their part to fight back against inflation, right? And investments elsewhere, they don't have to be tangible. It can be a number of different things, so long as you're educated in it, and it can be property. Building a business is an interesting one. For me, I respect the intention. You're doing something which you believe at some point is going to outpace inflation as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're betting on yourself. And a lot of the time, if you bet on yourself and you're consistent and you have the right people around you, you can build something. I often say to people that some of these people, before they exit from their startups or whatever, they spend 5 years earning below minimum wage based on the hours that they're working.
Definitely.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So I respect business owners and startups and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to touch that. That you put in £40,000 into a property doesn't make sense for them. Like I'm building my business.
100%.
Does that make sense? So I say everybody else has to buy a home. Why? Because buying a home is going to do two things. Over time, property in the UK goes up in value.
Yes.
So buying a home is going to be your home / your investments. For some people, for the majority of people, vast majority of people, buying their home is going to be their only ever investment. And we've seen examples of it as well. We've seen, like, sometimes when I say to people that when we was growing up and someone said, yeah, my nan gave me 40k deposit to buy my... You think she was in the S&P 500? She wasn't. She just bought a home once. She didn't know she was investing at the time. 40 years later, she's sitting on $1 million. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Because most millionaires are made that way.
Exactly, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? 40% of household wealth in the UK is property wealth. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So this is very, very important to know. So based on that, it's kind of like, all right, if you're not doing any of those things, at least buy your first home. And the second thing is, at least you've got somewhere to live in retirement. So you see for yourself here, if you retired and you lived in the UK, you've got investment properties that don't require you to be there, and they can help you pay for your rent in the UK, right? Somebody that hasn't invested anywhere, hasn't built a business, isn't an incredibly high earner, when it comes to retirement, they're going to have to rent somewhere. So their state pension and private pension, they're using the majority of it to pay rent when they should have been using it for Caribbean yacht trip.
Yeah.
And them things there. Do you get what I'm trying to say? People that have paid off their mortgage, their expenses have reduced so much, like their expenses might be £400 a month. So when it comes to going on a yacht and all these things, they can do it because, you know what I'm saying? So
I agree with you, actually. I didn't think I was going to agree with you.
I love it.
I didn't think I was going to agree with you, but I actually do agree with that. I think if that's the minimum, because at the end of the day, in life, the three biggest expensive people are going to have is housing, food, and transportation. So if you're going to be contributing towards housing anyways for the rest of your life, you might as well put it into something that could help you in the long run without you actually having to think about, okay, let me pick the right savings account, let me pick the right investment account, which stock should I pick? If you just pick a home, especially in the UK, and you contribute to it for a significant amount of time where you're paying down your mortgage, and then naturally that the asset is going to appreciate, at least you're still doing something. So I actually quite agree with that. So what is it exactly that you guys do at Bricks and Tips besides the content?
So at Bricks with Tips, beside the content, we help people buy investment properties here in the UK and in Dubai now as well. We help people buy their first home. We've got kind of like an offshoot of Bricks with Tips called the Home Buyers Club to help facilitate the people that are in that scenario. Because I guess in the UK, right, we're big believers. So one of our slogans for Bricks with Tips and the Home Buyers Club is using education to bridge the gap between dreams and reality. The reason why we use that, and it sounds quite extravagant, but it's as simple as in some scenarios, and you'll probably know this as well, in some scenarios, education is as good as the money. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Just knowing, okay, but you can actually do this and that. And this is why we use our platforms to educate people, because it can be so valuable. So that's what we do. We can help, we do help first time buyers buy their first home. We help people get into a number of different investment strategies as well. And yeah, we're just big on having an impact on our community effectively.
I love that. Okay, so we are going to be moving on to the Wealth Voice segment, and that is basically where one of the listeners sends in a dilemma, and they basically want to get your opinion on what they should do.
Sure.
So I will read. This person says, I've maxed my lifetime ISA for the past 2 years so far. However, I've now had the opportunity to move abroad, meaning I can't use my ISA towards a first-time residential mortgage in the UK anytime soon. What would be the best thing to do with this money instead to build wealth?
Right. So I think it's important to break down what the Lifetime ISA is. So the Lifetime ISA is a government scheme where you can deposit up to £4,000 per tax year and you'll get a 25% bonus. So the government will give you £1,000 bonus for every year that is in there effectively. You'll also earn interest on it, which makes it quite a good offering as well. The problem is that when you withdraw money, you'll pay a penalty. And quite often the penalty means that you might end up with less than what you put in. So in this case, this person has put in £4,000. She said she's maxed it. So she's putting £4,000 twice. So £8,000. At the moment, it's sitting at £10,000 plus the interest she would have earned. Now, ideally, what it's set up to do is that you can only use that money to buy a property or for retirement. If you use it for anything else, you will pay the penalty, which means that she'll end up with less than the 8K. So her options are quite simple.
So the penalty, if she took it out at the 10K, would be less than 8K?
Less than 8K.
Because it's how much is the penalty? 6?
The penalty is 25%. Yeah. The penalty is 25%. So it's quite...
Hold on, 25% of the total amount or the amount that you put in?
25% of the total amount.
Ooh.
Yes, of the total amount. So she'll pay 25% penalty, which means that she'll get £7,500 basically when she put in £8,000. Now, her options are quite like clear and in front of her, right? If she thinks that she's going to come back to the UK and buy a residential property, she can let it sit and come back to it effectively. If she wants the money and wants to take it out, she's going to have to pay a penalty. So she'll lose her bonus and lose £500 of the money that she put back in. The third option is leaving it in there until retirement. And that also just depends on where she feels that she's going to be during retirement. But that's kind of like how her options are looking at the moment.
So if she leaves it in there, does it continue to get interest?
Yeah, it will continue to get interest.
Okay, and do you know how much the percentage is?
It just depends on what the percentages are at the moment, basically.
Okay,
so it does fluctuate, but they
inflation.
typically, depending on who you save it with, do you save it with your bank, do you save it with Moneybox, they'll be paying a certain percentage rate, basically. And it is variable based on where the Bank of England's base rate is and so on and so forth.
I think if it's going to continue to earn interest, I don't think it's that bad of an idea to leave the money in there and just let it accrue. If you can just see it as another savings account, as long as that interest is good enough that it's like, okay, well, you know, they're not like, as long as it's not giving you like, let's say what the bank gives you if you just leave it in like a, you know, a general savings account, then I think that should be fine. But I personally have an issue with these government type saving schemes. You're smiling. And I think you'll be a good person to talk about, because I feel like you do talk about them quite a bit.
Absolutely.
I have an issue with them because, one, I am of the positioning that the government's job is not to make you wealthy, and especially in the UK. And I think that because of that, when they do come up with these schemes that are supposed to help you, there are usually catches in there, like in this instance, that can actually take people, that can kind of thwart people a little bit. And people sometimes don't think about, because the incentive always seems like it's, oh my God, this is so good. But then you don't think about like this lack of flexibility that you might have, for example, only being able to use your money towards two different options, pension or buying your first home. So I kind of have an issue with them. When I say issue, I don't whether people want to use them or not, I really don't personally care. I personally wouldn't use them because I know that, especially in the UK, the government is not trying to make you wealthy. The only government scheme that I particularly liked was the right to buy, because at the end of it, the idea is that you own solely and the government is not involved. But anything where you kind of have to maintain this relationship with the government, I don't really like them, but I wanted to get your thoughts on them. But I do know that obviously for certain people, these things can be a massive help.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on these government schemes?
So I'll start off by saying I'm with you 50% actually. I truly agree with you that the government or the UK as a whole isn't set out to make you wealthy. It's not. You can just tell that basically. Even when you look at things like you can take out debt, you can take out a loan to buy a car to pay for a wedding. You can take out a loan to buy a watch. But once you take out a loan to build a business, they'll decline it. It's like an auto decline. And that's kind of like an industry standard. I digress though. The thing that I don't agree with is that I don't think that it's a trap.
Okay.
I don't think that trap insinuates that there's malice. And with a lot of these things here, you got to understand why people have made the schemes. So the government has made these schemes because they understand that it's their duty to increase home ownership in the UK. Right? It's one of their deliverables. Housing is always going to be a big topic for any government that comes into power, basically. So it's one of their deliverables. So we understand it's one of their deliverables. We understand that sometimes when the government has deliverables, they can sometimes cut corners or not think things fully through to deliver them, basically. Or sometimes you're ticking the box, but is it actually helping people as much as it could? And I think that's where I kind of agree with you. So I don't think it's an intentional trap.
Yeah.
I think with some of them, they just aren't good. Does that make sense? If we talk about the lifetime ISA, if you love the right to buy, you should love the lifetime ISA. Let me break down the lifetime ISA.
I'll let you land.
Let me break down that person's dilemma.
Okay.
That person's moving country. It's a big change. There's cost of moving in loads of other things you do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Very true.
She might have taken out a car on lease 5 months before she left. That's an L that she's going to have to take. Sometimes when there's a scheme and sometimes when it comes back to bite you, you kind of think it's the scheme's fault, but you're actually making a big change.
Okay. Okay, I know, I love it. I love that point.
Can I say something else as well?
Go.
Let me break down the main benefit of the lifetime ISA.
Okay.
Right? You've been told at the beginning that you're going to get this bonus if you buy within a certain price range and you use the money. If you save and you're looking to buy within a certain price range, and the bonus is going to come every single year and you'll earn interest. If you fit all of the criteria and you didn't move country and you bought within the price range, you're going to get a 25% bonus on your money, which is a lot more than you're getting elsewhere, basically.
True.
So it's kind of like, and this is why we've got our platform, right? Because it's all about education, in my opinion. And so long as you fully understand the potential cons as well, you can navigate. And I think that goes for a lot of the schemes. But what I will say is that other than lifetime ISA, a lot of the schemes, people really need to understand, is this meant for me? And do I need it? And that's what I definitely say. I always say, see if you can buy without a scheme first and then look into schemes.
You're right. You're actually right. The reason why I call it a trap is not because, yes, and I wouldn't say that there's a secret element to it or whatever, but the reason why I say that is because a lot of the times, the type of people to go for those schemes are people who may not necessarily be the most, I don't know what the phrase to use is. It's just kind of like with, let's say we're looking at, okay, might be a bit of a drag of a comparison, but let's look at Klarna, right? These buy now, pay later, they're always shaped like, oh my God, we're just trying to help, your everyday person to buy things. And if you pay it back within X amount of time, then there are no fees anyways. You don't pay any interest. So like, what's the problem? But then underlying that is like, okay, but the type of person to even think to go and use Klarna is probably someone who may not be in that financial position to pay it back within the however many days it is that you don't have to pay interest. And you low-key kind of know that. And so you can make money off of that because you know that the sort of people who will be attracted to this thing may find themselves in a difficult situation. Not saying that all government schemes are like that, but I do kind of find that. But you are right in the terms of the person who is signing up to those schemes is responsible for trying to understand everything about those schemes. And I guess yeah, it just boils down to those people. But I don't think that people, I guess we place the onus on the person, do enough research into, okay, what are the potential ramifications? And everything has an opportunity cost. So if a scheme looks so great, like you put in £4,000 and you get £1,000, that is an amazing incentive. And as viewers, those of you who are watching this, if the government, if anybody is offering you something like that, you should always think that there is going to be some sort of risk to that, because nobody just hands out free money. There are going to be certain things that and for me, I'm someone who values my flexibility. I'm someone who values my choice. So something like any government scheme that says you can't move, or then it's not going to say you can't move countries, but by virtue of the penalty, it's kind of like, well, if you sign up for this, then you stick with this. Anything that will reduce my flexibility and my ability to kind of choose, for me, I'm kind of a no-go. But I guess you are right that if someone was then to stick with it and it did work out well, then would you really have anything negative to say about it? Because actually, at the end of the day, you got your free money.
So I'm going to come back to choice. So if I forget, remind me, I want to speak about the choice, right? But I love your Klarna example. You mentioned a Klarna example, and I agree with it. There's another way that Klarna example comes in as well, which happens a lot, which I think is an even worse issue with schemes as well. I speak to a lot of first-time buyers. My wife and I help many first-time buyers buy their first home. But there's a bigger issue than the one that you mentioned. And I'm going to use the Klarna example again. You've come to buy a top. The top costs £70. You have £70. You arrive and see that they do Klarna and you use the Klarna. Does that make sense? And the reason why I say that happens in the home buying process is that because schemes make there be less friction and lower barriers to entry, a lot of people that don't need to use schemes are using schemes, and they're sacrificing equity, they're paying more, they're sacrificing sometimes getting a leasehold when they could get a freehold, and so on and so forth, basically. So that's why I really like that Klarna option, because it's the truth. You've come in and you can actually buy without any schemes. But because it's kind of like lower hanging fruit, a bit easier, a bit quicker, you want to decide that you want to do that. And that's why for a lot of the schemes, I've typically got rules for each of the schemes, basically, in that when you should consider them. I often say as well, like, depending on what scheme it is, developer, lender, and government, typically these schemes, unless it's like broad ones, like the Lifetime ISA is a very broad one, it's a good scheme.
Okay.
But the rest of them, I genuinely feel like only like 5 to 7% of people or less should be considering them. That's the truth of it.
Choice.
The thing I was going to say about choice. So what you said about the Lifetime ISA, yeah, you know that you want flexibility. So you've seen what the Lifetime ISA offers, and you can see that if I want to use the money for anything other than buying my first home or retirement, I'm going to pay a penalty. So you know that, okay, do you know what? I like flexibility, so I'm probably not going to take it up. For a lot of people that know they want to buy their first home, it can work out for them. They know that they're committed to it and they know that they're dedicated to it, then it can work out for them. But I guess that a lot of troubles come in, and not for this lady's reason, because you'll choose to move home choose to move country for a number of different reasons. But sometimes people's commitment to buying their first home just falls off, and then they end up paying the penalty effectively.
And okay, another reason why I didn't like the Lifetime ISA, is it still going, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good. Since you say it's good, I'm going to trust you as a property expert that it's good for the right person. It'll be really good. Is because when you purchase you're unable to purchase your first property as an investment property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another little, I don't know what you would call it, I guess caveat, that then a lot of people who come to me are like, oh, I want to get my first property as an investment property, and then realize that, oh, actually, this scheme doesn't actually work towards that. And I'm a big pusher of, especially people, and now when I'm speaking, I'm speaking from people who are in very similar situations to the situation that I was in, right? So, and when it comes to people talking about their experiences, you only really know about yourself, maybe a few other people. I'm a big pusher of if you can get your first property as an investment property before your residential property, you should do that, because your ability to be able to purchase your next property after buying your first one as an investment property is a lot easier. I find that people who buy their residential property first will take a lot longer to buy their next property, because when you buy residential property, you have so many other costs and you're not necessarily making income from that it can take you longer to get to your next one. Whereas people who buy the investment property as their first one, once you've put down that deposit, everything else should be cash coming into your pocket, not cash coming out. So they can often quite easily buy the next one. You will see it. Like, people get first investment property 1 year, then maybe a year later, 2 years later, they'll do the next one. Whereas people who get their residential property first, some of them will never even have enough to go and get another investment property because actually mortgage prices are going up, actually cost of living is high, all of these things. So I was very big on pushing people to get an investment property first, especially people who were like still able to live at home, because that is like a massive help. You might as well do that. And the Lifetime ISA did not allow people to do that. And then I'd often find a lot of people who were like, oh my God, I put all this money into an ISA and now like I don't want to buy a house in London, but that's my only option if I want to do residential and I want to buy a house up north, and now I feel like I have to start my savings pot all over again.
Wow, so much to unpack there, right? I disagree with some of it.
Okay.
There's something that you mentioned, right? I want to buy my first home, but I need to buy it in London. Hopefully we can get onto that later, but people need to understand that you don't need to buy your first home.
But if people are working in London...
listen, you've come a lot. You've got an amazing journey. Did you have sacrifices along the way?
Yeah.
Was it pure comfort to get to where you were?
No.
It wasn't. When people live in New York, they don't buy in... If you lived in New York and you grew up in New York, you wouldn't think that, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy in Manhattan. Or even if you grew up in the Bronx, right? You know the prices have changed. If you grew up in, let's just say, even in Dubai, right? You're not buying your first home, or for the majority of people, they're not looking at buying their first home in Business Bay. They're looking at the growing areas for two reasons: affordability and you benefit from the growth, right? It's the same thing for London. I say to people that like, our parents' Covent Garden is today's Peckham. That's the truth of it. That's actual facts, by the way. Covent Garden 20 years ago was cheaper than Peckham is today. You get what I'm trying to say? So when we want to buy in the areas that we grew up in, the truth is it's not realistic. And when you look at where first-time buyers buy their first homes, in the UK, I always say we don't earn massively different from each other. If you're working a salaried job.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
You know what the salary scheme is like. But the majority of people, as much as there's 100K Twitter, the majority of people will be earning between about
30 to 50.
30 to 50, 30 to 60, 30 to 70. And the amount that you can borrow doesn't vary differently. So that's where you find that people that live in North London, the ones that actually are able to buy, they start buying in like Harlow, your Bishop Stortford, your Waltham Cross. The people in East start to buy Barking and Dagenham, but if not, Grays, Trafford 100 and all those ones. The South East lot, maybe they'll buy on the outskirts like near Welling and Bexley, but if not, Dartford, Rochester, Gillingham. And then the Croydon lot are buying in like Crawley and stuff like that, basically. So I think that it follows a pattern, basically. And I feel like sometimes the need to buy in London is kind of like, it's a comfort thing, right? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you wanna be 50 minutes from work. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it. And that goes for a lot of different things in life as well. The thing that you mentioned about buying your home, your investment property first, I disagree with it. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's two things, right? It depends on your intent in what you want to do. And I like the fact that you mentioned that people that are like you as well. So in actual fact, if you buy an investment property first, that process is going to be harder because a lot of lenders will see that you've got no skin in the game where property is concerned. And you'll have less lending options. Definitely is still possible. I don't want to make it sound like it's not possible.
It's definitely possible because I did it.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
One thing, I'm going to use you as an example as well, right? When you buy your first home, a lot of lenders are happy to lend to you after as well because you've got a mortgage, you've got evidence of paying
100%.
it. You're building equity, you can pull out equity and buy other properties. And that's the method I took as well. And I'm going to liken it to something in a second as well. Remember as well that like when you're buying an investment property, you typically got to put down 25%. In some cases, you've got to put down 20%. When you're buying your first home, you can put down as low as 5%. So a lot of people can achieve the home quicker.
But that's not true. Because when you're buying an investment property, you can go way further up that will allow you that when you actually really calculate, let's say you're going to get somewhere in like these outskirts places in London, and let's say you have to put down 10%, and let's say the house value was like 300K, you'll put down 30K for that property.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go up north and then you're buying a 4-bedroom HMO in Liverpool for 120K, you'll still put down 30K, even though it's 25%.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that for someone that doesn't want to buy a home as well, yeah? Because what a lot of people make the mistake in that is that they go and buy a property in Middlesbrough for 60K. They buy it as an investment property.
As in all in 60K?
Yeah.
Okay.
Middlesbrough is cheap.
People, I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, far cheap. Buy it for 60, 80K or whatever, yeah? Pay a little bit of stamp duty. And then what they want to do is that in next year or 2 years, they want to buy their marital home down south, 400K. And because it counts as their second home, they're paying the additional rate of stamp duty because their net properties is going up by 1. So in actual fact, what they're going to do is pay additional rate of stamp duty on a house that costs 400K, which is going to be, the stamp duty changes, stamp duty rates.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's like north of 22,000. Whereas if you did it the other way around, you would have got stamp duty privileges
On the cheaper
on the more expensive one and paid additional stamp duty on the cheap one. So, but there is something key in what you're saying, and I'm going to agree, even though I disagreed with what you said. It's not about what's easier. It's easier for you because of your intent. You know that you wanted to build a portfolio. So you buying one and then buying two isn't about what you did first, in my opinion. It's because you're intentional about what you're doing.
Right.
And I think that's the theme of what we've been speaking about so far. Just be educated and be firm in your choice. Understand what you want from property. Some people want part home, part investment, right? And that's why some people will. So for example, I knew that I wanted that. If I tell you about how I bought my first home, I bought a 3-bedroom property. When I bought it, I knew I was going to rent out the other 2 rooms. And that's because when I was in university, I used to speak to my landlord when we were renting room by room. I used to speak to my landlord, like, how much are you making off this? What's the mortgage? What's the mortgage? So I'm understanding it. So when I bought my first home, I knew I was going to rent out the 2 rooms. Okay. So I bought my first home, rented out 2 rooms. They paid for the mortgage and then some. I then pulled out equity and then started using that to buy investment properties. And that's how I started building my property portfolio. But there was intent. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just understanding what you want to do, being intentional, being educated, and then pulling the trigger.
Good. So good. So good. And I love when people can challenge me and we can have a productive conversation, because I think there will be people who are watching who would be like, okay, no, what he's saying makes more sense for me. And other people would be like, no, what she's saying makes more sense for me. So I think it's good, because at the end of the day, when it comes to money, when it comes to investing, when it comes to finances, there isn't a one size fits all. This is the right thing for everybody, because everyone's financial situation is so different. Everyone has like very different financial goals. People have kids, there's so many reasons why you might want to go either which way first. And so I think it's good to have someone who's kind of like saying it from the other perspective. But okay, cool. Okay, so we're now going to be moving on to the quick fire money questions. So I'll just ask you 3 questions and you just let me know what your answer is.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question is, what is the best investment you've ever made?
Oh, in myself.
Oh,
100%.
Everyone says that.
No, but it's true though.
Okay, tell us.
It's true, like, just in everything that you do, investing in yourself with money and in time as well. So get better at what you do. Understand. Look, one thing I've been going through for the last 5 years, so I'm trying to change my answer from other people's, yeah. It's kind of like understanding who I am as well. Like, what do I get joy from? What is my passion? What is my purpose?
Okay.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? And it's so interesting. Like, I realized something in the last 3 years as well. And I was scared to say it at one point. Okay. We've got Bricks with Tips, which is a platform built on helping people get better with property. But something was bugging me for a while, like, and it was that, like, am I that passionate about property?
Ooh.
And then I learned that property is my expertise. My passion is helping people. Because the same energy I was putting into Bricks with Tips is that I was helping young people get better in their careers. But when I was going to talk about property, I found myself just speaking to young people about just life lessons, believing in yourself. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Not tying your purpose to how much you earn or what car you drive or what clothes you wear, like just being confident in who you are. So I feel like my passion is actually, or Antoinette and I's passion is actually just helping people be better versions of themselves. Our expertise is property. That's fine. That's cool. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
How do you invest in yourself to figure those things out?
So based on what I was mentioning, I did invest in myself, money and time, but given the answer that I was giving before, I was paying attention to myself. So it sounds crazy and it can sound simple, but like I would go through a certain scenario like where I didn't want to do something or something was stopping me doing something. And I would actually sit down and wonder to myself, like, why is it that I don't want to do this particular thing? Or why is it that I'm drawn to it? Like I used to like over obsess with learning it and learning more about myself, basically. So hopefully that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a really good one. Okay, so what is the biggest money mistake you've ever made?
Can I give 2?
Yeah.
I'll give you a fun one, right?
Okay.
Meme coins. In the last bull run, I always tell this story. I think I must have put in the hundreds. It wasn't a huge amount of money. In the hundreds into a meme coin. And my friends used to make fun of me about this to this day. Within a day, it was like £3,000.
Okay.
Within the second day, it was like 12,000.
Oh.
Then like the third day, it was like 36,000. I think I got to a point where it was like 65,000, basically.
Instead of you to take out.
You say that. And this is what they say, but you weren't with me. When it was at hundreds and it went to 3K in one day, it's like, this is interesting. When it went to like 9,000 or whatever it went to the next day, it's like, okay, we're running it up. When you've got to like 64,000 in 4 days, instead of thinking, I'm going to take this out now, you're thinking this thing could hit 640,000. Within, you counting the days and say, bro, by Saturday, this is at 640 millionaire in 7 days. Like, you genuinely, like, experiencing it. And it's a money mistake. And I feel like I'm one of these people, I'm glass half full, right? And once again, it helped me learn about myself as well. I need to do stuff that is, I can't do the fast-paced stuff. I can't do the overnight celebrity stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It needs to be full understanding, intentional, surgical, strategic. Like I mentioned what I'm like before, basically. Anyways, I ended up walking away with about 4,500, which is kind of insane.
Oh, still though, you put in hundreds and you got 4.5.
Yeah, but I was up to like 60-something. Anyways.
But when you started seeing it, by the time it got to like 50, you should have been
But it doesn't come straight down though. Even when it was at 30-something, it didn't just go straight to 64. It might have dropped down to 25, then come back to 27. And then, you know what I'm trying to say? So when it's coming down, I think, yeah, we're going back up there. We're going to 100.
These sort of things, yeah, usually like with typical investment, let's say you had a stocks and shares ISA, if things are falling, you never say, okay, take the money out. But with something like a meme coin.
Listen, there's examples of people mashing on it as well. And it's crazy as well. It was a crazy time as well because like it's the Wild West. Like I couldn't set stop losses or I didn't know how to at the time. So it's like I'm waking up in the middle of that, no alarm, just to check how it's doing. Like my body can't sleep. Like it's crazy.
Okay, what's the second one?
The second one's back to what you said about the UK, innit? Like,
okay.
And this is probably like my early days. And it was kind of like cherishing the UK operates. Americans are on attack when it comes to their finances. The UK's on defense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, let me hold this 2,100. Make sure no one can touch it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I wish I was more.
Why do you think that is?
It's a culture that was intentionally built.
Do you think it's because we have like the NHS and like benefits and all that stuff? Because in general, like I don't know with UK, it's a very different culture, a very different mindset.
We aren't in the UK. We're not supposed to dream big. I always give the example like you just need to look at the US. Like the US have got the American dream, and when they've got the American dream, everybody exudes confidence. Everybody exudes ambition, even if they're not going to make it. I always give the example that like. There'll be a guy that's got one truck. He's had one truck for 20 years. And all his friends around him are like, yeah, bro, I can't wait till you get your 20 trucks. You're going to do it. Don't worry. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But he's never going to get 20 trucks, but he believes. And that's the key thing, the American dream. That's why they're willing to bet big. Even when you look at like, in America, you can get business loans for like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Like crazy lines of credit because everybody believes in the dream. Everybody believes in bigger. Whereas investment and like growth is kind of stifled here. Do you get what I'm trying to say? In the UK, you can't even, we've seen it several times, you can't even come out and say that, you know, I'm on 60K and I'm struggling, which is a fact for some people. Because when you say it, people that are on less are going to come and say to you, how dare you open your mouth?
What do you mean?
How dare you open your mouth? That's what they're going to say to you.
Literally.
And for those of you listen, like sometimes you got to ask yourself, do I have to leave that environment as well? Do I have to curate my timeline to be seeing stuff that is a little bit more...
Anyway, so what was the mistake for you?
The mistake for me was that... I kind of subscribed to that maybe early on, maybe in like my early 20s, like 21, 22. So I was very like, yeah, kind of like savvy, not like taking more risks, basically. It all kind of flipped when I kind of understood that like when I was younger than 20, I used to like go out and like waste money on like drinks and tables and stuff like that. And then once something clicked, it said that like if I could waste money on that stuff, that definitely, it's got 100% chance of amounting to anything great. The drinks of you can't, it's not Nigeria, you can't leave with the bottles. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So if I can be 100% sure that that's going to zero, then into business where I can believe in myself and bet on myself, and it's got a chance of going into something greater, I'm going to go crazy with investing into businesses and taking risks, basically. And that's where it kind of flipped for me.
Can I say something here? I think what really saves me is because I don't know if you have noticed, but I guess I'm in the personal finance field, but I am not really associated with the UK Black crowd. Only now through this podcast, even you, I didn't come across your content till a couple of months ago.
Seriously?
Right? Seriously.
But the timelines are crazy.
Yeah.
Timelines are crazy. Like sometimes someone can be operating in a parallel field to you and it won't show you.
Like,
for the record, I've followed you for a very long time.
Oh, is it? No, I only recently came across your stuff, and I, in general, have not, even like within the Black excellence corporate, you will not see me at all these events, at all the stuff. People don't even invite me out anymore because I don't associate. And it's not because some people will take it as, oh, she thinks she's better and whatever. I really don't. But for me, when I was growing up, the women that I was looking up to, and you can go to my channel and you can look at, I did this video on like Millionaire at 25. All of the women that I was looking up to through YouTube saved me, were all American. And I would find that like, when I was looking amongst my UK peers, I wasn't seeing that same mindset. And I'm very, 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 very intentional on the reason why my life right now, and I can say quite confidently, looks so different to a lot of the people that I grew up with. Not saying that it's better, but it's very different. Is because I didn't allow myself to be surrounded with people that were just not on that wave. I had like my one close friend, Victoria, she's crazy. She's in America right now. We have a very similar mindset. And I had my small group of friends, but I would not fraternize in the UK spaces because I don't even know. I just felt like there was just not a fit. And I would just watch these American girls and I'd be so inspired. And a lot of what my life looks like right now is based on these Americans that I was watching. Except for Patricia Bright at the time, but I don't even know if I was necessarily watching her for ambition, maybe just for a lifestyle thing. But there were very few UK people that I could look up to. And only now that I'm so confident in who I am, that I'm like, okay, I can enter back into the UK space, but still be confident in who I am. But I think if I had allowed myself in my earlier years when my mind was still formative, I think if I had associated heavily with the UK crowd, I don't think I would be where I am right now, just because of that mindset difference.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What you're saying is that like they had bigger dreams, basically.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what I said about the mortgage stuff, right? Different scenarios, but as I was saying that if you're around people that doing mortgages every single day, you're thinking, or buying houses every single day, you're thinking of buying a house is light. The same thing to you is that if you're constantly curating your timeline with people that are dreaming of making multi-millions by the time they're 25 years old or 26 years old, you're going to be thinking, yeah, this is definitely possible. You curate that and block everything else out, basically. But similarly, like we mentioned in the UK, if we are operating in a space whereby you earn £50,000 and people are going to think that you made it, then that's what you're going to start thinking, and that's what you're going to be comfortable with. So
literally, that's literally how it was. And this is no offense to anyone, but sometimes you just have to go through a period of isolation just to make sure, because it could be that one little comment that will like derail your path, or like, oh, why would you do that? Or why would you go to Dubai? Or
exactly,
and you just won't do it. And it's the littlest of things. So I had to make sure that I created an ecosystem that was going to fuel my growth. Anyways,
yeah, just to add on to that as well, it can be simply. I like what you said at the end, and it's as simple as understand and be comfortable with the fact that the road to success is lonely. Right? The successful of few, and the others are many, basically. So.
Yeah, literally. Okay, and then last one is, what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is trying to build wealth?
The road to success is lonely. You'll be alone a lot of the time. Build your tribe. Your tribe is super, super important. Get around like-minded people. It doesn't mean isolate your other friends, but you know your tribe that when I write this thing about my dream, first of all, they're going to respond. Second of all, they're going to support it. And third of all, they've got their own dreams as well. I think that's super, super important. No man is an island, like they say. Building wealth, I'd say you have to have foresight. Even with like property investing, like you have to understand where things are going. You're not a tree, you can move as well. I think it's super, super important. We spoke about your timeline. Sometimes your environment has to change. Sometimes you need to look around you and say that, is this environment contributing to where I want to be? If it's not, you might have to change it. Building wealth. Be strategic. Put things in place. Put goals in place. I have this really cheap. I don't know how. I need another way to say it, innit?
What?
It sounds like a Disney saying, innit? But you know this whole like Disney saying where it's like, aim for the moon, and if you miss, you'll still end up in the stars, innit? So cheesy. But I implement that.
Yeah.
So so last year, I got a vision board, and I started looking at certain houses that at the time of writing it, I had no idea how I was going to afford it. Yeah? And I said, I want to do it in a year. And I started working backwards. So this income has to increase to this, and this business has to grow to this. So now you've got tangible strategy and action points that you need to take. But I knew that even if I didn't manage to get that, I would have grown those income pots so much so that you'd end up, quote unquote, with the stars. We're getting something way better than if I just lived. So you have to kind of always stay aggressive. Don't be comfortable. Like comfort is where complacency starts to build, basically. So you kind of have to stay aggressive, innovate or die. So I'm saying a lot of things, but hopefully you're catching something. One of them's gonna land with someone. But these things are super important. Like I swear, like I love to look at businesses, and like the other day I posted on my story, and like loads of people viewed it. Just speaking about Skype. Like Skype, in my mind, got comfortable basically because they were the video messaging OGs.
Yeah.
You allowed WhatsApp video to surpass you, Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. You guys were the OGs, but the inability to change, to innovate, or to understand that, you know what? We was doing B2B, but really what we need to be doing is we need to enter the business space and provide this to businesses so they can use our services. Dead. They're closing down in like a month or so. So,
okay.
Yeah, they did. They did. So yeah.
Well, Tayo, thank you so much. This has actually been one of my favorite episodes that I've recorded. No, I swear.
You're saying that.
And I've never said that before. I've actually never said that. This was actually really good. It was fun.
It's a good thing you came across my content 2 months ago.
Yeah, well, no, it's good to think you invited me to speak on your podcast so then I could invite you back.
Exactly that.
Yeah. But no, this was actually really, really good. I enjoyed it. I think it was like a bit of back and forth. And I like that. I like also when I'm being challenged because that's when I'm learning. So I really, really like that. Thank you so much for coming. Where can people find you? Yes, so
at Bricks with Tips on all platforms. That's on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And our website is www.brickswithtips.co.uk. And if you're interested in buying your first home, at the Home Buyers Club.
Amazing. Thank you.